the window project at the Brown School that we came to in front of the board probably maybe a little over a month ago. In order for me, or for the school department to enter into the application process for a grant through MSBA, the Board of Selectmen has to approve that in a majority vote, as well as the school committee. The school committee approved myself and my assistant, Mr. Ruda, going forward with an SOI for the new construction of a new school. Now, I just want to be clear that this is probably, you're looking at 2-3 years down the road at least, even if you get the grant money. This SOI is only proving us to go forward in attempting to get into the application process. It's not even in the application process if you approve this, it's just letting us put that in.
So this just gets the ball rolling. And just for the folks who are watching, this construction we're looking into, I believe, could be a possible replacement to two of the existing older elementary schools, correct?
That will be up for discussion, obviously, once we get into the grant process, if we get into the application process. What we're looking at would be to close the Gardner School and the Luther School, consolidate the 3 to 5s to the middle school, the current middle school, and to build a new middle school. So that would put your Gardner School K-2 at the Brown School. You would have the Hoyle School as a K-2. You would have all the 3 to 5s consolidated under one roof at the junior high school, and looking, like I said, to build a new middle school.
Regarding this motion, has this been, have you bounced this off of council, or is this some wording that you've gotten as some stock?
This is the wording that I know you get from MSBA. It comes right up their website as far as when you fill out an SOI. Then after this, if we get into the application were to be accepted, we have to come back to you for another vote that you would put it on town meeting. So it's really, nothing's in stone at this point. This is just letting us basically reach out to MSBA and see if there would be any support for the town of Swansea as far as the new school building. So, and again, then obviously the vote goes to the town meeting as well on the floor. So,
it looks like initial requirements, I'm just going to read them off here. Minutes of the Board of Selectmen meeting, we think of this meeting, text of the vote, certified by the town clerk, initial compliance certification signed by the chief executive officer or town administrator, minutes of the school committee meeting, the text of vote, dated and signed by the chair. Anything else you'd like to add before I open this up?
I would just say that this has been a conversation between my group, the school committee, and myself, and my central administration, and the advisory and finance board for the last 3 years. Mr. McAuliffe was there when we went and presented our budget a couple of weeks ago. It continues to come up, and I can see that we invest a lot of money in our capital improvements. We have old buildings, and I think that board is looking at it as maybe stop investing in the old buildings if we can get the new building built. So I think that was the gist that I was getting from the advisory and finance board. I was doing the paperwork to write the SOI the other day, and we got one building was built in the 20s and added on in the 50s, another one was built in the 20s and added on in the 50s, another one was built in the 20s and added on in the 50s, another one was built in the 50s. So we're looking at 2 of the buildings were built in the 20s and added on to in the 50s. I believe that the middle school, to keep the middle school there doesn't behoove us in the education of our students, as far as, especially when you're looking at square footage per child, especially in the science area and the science labs. We really don't even have that space or that type of flexibility in the middle school for that. When we did the science labs over in a few years ago at the high school, we addressed that problem there. Those have all been done over and meet the square footage needs of what we have, as well as You know, we have a middle school that really doesn't have an auditorium. You know, we have a middle school that, you know, we can't sit every student in there, which I think is important. And some of the classroom sizes there, we would need less space if we put the 3 to 5s there. And then, so that's why I'm suggesting, and the committee is suggesting, that we go that way. Again, before we get into this process totally, obviously there'd be some reaching out to the community and discussing with the community. Because people, I understand, are gonna be sensitive to neighborhood schools, okay? But I think in this day and age, as you look at other districts and they consolidate their schools when they're doing projects like this, that the notion of neighborhood schools isn't always possible to maintain. So that's the reason we're kind of thinking in that direction.
Sort of soften that blow of the district in any way, I think. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues if they have any questions. Mr. Vice Chairman?
Well, good evening, Superintendent Montero.
Mr. Markey?
This MSBA, that keeps on coming up. That seems to be quite a durable program. What is it, financed through the Massachusetts legislature?
Yes.
Annual budget, perhaps?
Yep. And then they do some investing, and the money they make on their investments, well, that's when the grants either grow or not. So this is a core program. This is basically for, the other program was called the Accelerated Repair Program, which is for roofs, boilers, and windows only. This is a core program, which is for major renovations, additions, and new school buildings. So it's a little bit different process. It's obviously much more in-depth process.
You know, it seems a little unusual how the whole subject comes to the surface, where it was initially raised by the A&F board. But nevertheless, you know, I can see their interest in some part about putting good money into old schools. But then there is always the issue about the older buildings were well constructed and perhaps the newer ones aren't as well constructed. We have those points. But really, you know, at this time when we make this presentation, I'm reeling. I'm reeling from on April 11th, the voters will be asked to coin up $4 million on top of $1 million that's already been appropriated for a total of a $5 million beach project. The library project is in full swing. They've hired an owner's project manager and an architect to construct the library. That cost hasn't been determined yet, but the most recent construction in Tiverton was $12 million. The town hall committee is right there with them because town hall reuse is an issue with the development of a library project and or a town hall project. So, you know, I hate to disappoint you, and I understand what the need is, but at this point in time, I cannot support another capital improvement project.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I totally understand. I think, again, Mr. McAuliffe can attest that was part of my conversation with the Advisory and Finance Board, that if this was the right time to do this, and because I mentioned the projects that we have been working on for 2 or 3 years, like the beach and the town hall and the library and still a highway department down the road and those types of things, you know, and I was urged to at least go through the process of seeing if we would qualify for grant money. So that's what I'm here doing, and I totally respect your opinion in that manner.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Mr. Vice Chairman, would you not support the process of seeing what we can get for grant money?
That's correct. It's a commitment.
How is it a commitment? It's a commitment simply to see what we can get for grant money.
It is a commitment. I'm not willing to commit to any additional capital improvement project.
Okay, very good. Mr. Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. Montero, for being here today. I understand that this keeps coming up. Every time I went before the Advisory and Finance Committee with you, it comes up. We have talked a lot about student population and recent increases in student population, specifically after we implemented a full-day kindergarten program. And then we saw 160 students all of a sudden get dropped in Swansea with the emergency shelter that was in place. And the population issue became even more of an issue. And now we have rapid residential development in town, which I believe it's rapid. I believe we have an issue. But other members of our town leadership doesn't necessarily see it that way. First of all, Mr. Montero, do you think that we do have an issue with an increase in student population?
I can't argue with the numbers. I've had conversations with Mr. Antonelli from the planning board, and he does a pretty good job, pretty thorough job. Our numbers are kind of static at this point over the last few years, and you know, some of the stats that Mr. Antonelli puts out there that we're actually over the last 10 years down the number of students. My point being here is the buildings. Okay, are we properly being able to educate our students at the middle school in the 21st century in that facility? I think we can do that with our 3 to 5 students for some of the reasons I mentioned, especially the science and that kind of stuff. So again, it's to I think to myself, and I can speak for my committee, the population does concern us, the amount of buildings, houses that are being built. But again, there's two sides to that coin where, you know, the average house size used to be 4 point something students or people, and now it's 2 or 3, you know, just, children, I mean. So, you know, there's definitely some statistics on both sides of that, you know. I think when you speak to Mr. Antonelli, he can share that as well, you know. One of the other things he brought up was the median age of the residents. You know, back in was 36.3, now it's 44 is the median age, and to tell you quite honestly, the houses that are being built in Swansea, most of them seem to be over $400,000 and $500,000. I don't know a lot of young families that are going to be able to come in and afford those types of houses with a mass influx of school-age children. So I think there's both sides to that story. But my point being is the buildings, the facilities, and we have to prepare ourselves for increases. We do have another very large kindergarten class coming in, which is going to be 25 or more students. The state law is 28 in a class. This year's only 18, this current class, but our current 4th grade, we were on the school committee, was nearing that. So you're going to have those fluctuations in the school, you know, Luther School and Gardner School may not be able to handle that. I mean, what are we going to do in that situation when we do have too many kindergarten students and not enough room, or in any specific class? Are we going to start putting modular buildings up? I mean, we were at a point 2 years ago where I was already starting to look at that when we started to see that bulge. So again, there's two sides to that story, and a lot of the data that Mr. Antonelli shares with me, you know, is accurate. You know what I mean? It's you know, like for one here, population growth estimates, small increase out to 2030 from 15,865 people in 2010 to 16,319 people in 2020. That's not crazy numbers, you know what I mean? When you look at it, that's total people, that's not students. So again, my point being, we need a new middle school. And again, the other part of that conversation is, well, why build a middle school instead of a high school? I think the capital improvements that we've done at our high school over the last 5 or 6 years have brought that school up to a 21st century learning facility where it certainly wasn't 5 or 6 years ago. I think we're comfortable there, you know.
I remember when we've had these discussions before, it was a detriment in recent years that we actually take care of our buildings, because we saw other communities that weren't taking care of their buildings, and they were being awarded money, and we were competing with them in our school building assessments by the state, and we weren't qualifying for anything because our buildings were in good shape.
Right, because we had MSBA do a survey, remember, about 6 or 7
remember
years
that.
ago, and they assessed our buildings as in pretty good shape, especially for the age of.
So do you think that's gonna play into this?
It might, but I'm not gonna let my buildings run down just so I can, stack the cards,
agree, but
trying to get grant money. Yeah, we have beautiful, the older buildings are beautiful, but, you're looking at window jobs at 3 of them now, and that can of worms, like Westport Ave, you never know where that goes, okay? When you start
If you
taking
were to compare
windows
our
out of old
schools-
buildings and stuff, I talked about a window, a grant for a window project at the Brown School, and I think I told this board $260 for the windows, but then when you go to MSBA, you're looking at a project manager, and you're looking at this, you're looking at that, you're looking at 300, and that's not what having the environmental testing done first. That could go higher, you know what I mean? So, back to Mr. Marquis' concerns, if that went in that direction, now you're looking at even more money to put those windows in, at the Brown School, if it went in that direction. So, I don't know, if the Gardner and the Luther School could be repurposed. We certainly have done a lot of work at the Luther School. All the classrooms have new flooring. The gymnasium has new flooring. There's one new boiler and one second boiler that's an older boiler. So there's been a lot of work done at the Luther School. I think it's obviously the new infrastructure and parking lot. I don't know if there was thoughts with the town hall committee that might be something they would want to use for a town hall. I think there's plenty of parking, certainly more parking than there is at our town hall. Gotta get your mud boots out there pretty soon in the next couple of weeks. Does the recreation commission, could they repurpose Gardner School or something like that? Just some thoughts on my part.
How critical is it though right now that we do this?
Is it critical? I don't think it's that critical, but again, I'm trying to be responsible and
Trying to be proactive.
and trying to be proactive, be responsible, and be a man of my word that the conversations that I've had the last 2 years with the advisory and finance board.
Do you feel like we're throwing good money after bad at these buildings?
It will never.
I mean, that might be the perception for A&F, but is
Yeah.
that your perception as superintendent?
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much good money after bad, but it's never gonna end. It's never gonna end, but we got a long way to go before it ends. You're looking at old plumbing, you're looking at old windows. Most of the flat roofs probably got 5 or 8 more years on their warranty, but we're gonna be putting roofs on Luther and Gardner on the shingle sections.
I saw that.
This year, and, there's more infrastructure I need to do to Gardner School to get rid of the lake that creates out in front of it every time it rains, so right where the students are getting off the bus and between the island and the school. It's just ongoing, so I wouldn't wanna say so much good after bad, but with the age of the buildings, you're gonna have to continue, to do things, And you look at the junior high school even, a lot of the floors in there need replacing. And, it's a lot easier, and you know this, being on a school committee, it's a lot easier to replace a tile floor when it wasn't put down in 1954 and you gotta worry about the mastic underneath it. Costs about 5 times as much to abate it than it does to put a tile floor in. So, those are the kinds of things that you would get away from by having a new building and 2 less older buildings.
And
That
lastly,
answers the question.
Mr. Montero, what kind of a commitment do you think this is for us to approve this tonight?
This is a commitment that if you're granted the application, if we get into the application process, right, and they grant us the money, it's a commitment that the selectmen and the school committee agree to go to town meeting, right, John, am I correct in this? Agree to go to town meeting and try to get the other money appropriated. Does it mean that the town has to vote for it?